Пані та панове, шановні гості,
Dear
радий вас
ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, very happy to welcome you in this room. My name is Oleg Manyuk. It's my honor to moderate our today's conference that has this beautiful name, the Bridge to Europe. And today we will try to strengthen this bridge because the Ukrainian dream to be a part of the European community, this dream today is as close as possible for Ukraine, and it actually depending on our work, on our efforts, the Ukrainian efforts as soon as possible have to materialize. So before we start, allow me to once again say a few housekeeping issues to mention. We are in the shelter. That's why in the event of an air raid alert, there is no need to change the location. We will continue to work here according to our plan. We would like to remind you on the information security rule. Immediate silence is in effect until the end of the event. Please refrain from posting on social media and publicly quoting content until the official closing. Please use then afterwards anything that you can use. You can also use the QR code on your badges. There are links to all the materials of our conference. Also, we will have photo and video materials. We have the event that is running in several languages. In case you need the translation, please use the headphones. And we will be talking today during our work in several panels. We will be talking about some important things, and these important things, they are really they're quite actual for Ukraine. We are talking today about Ukraine's efforts to become the part of the European family, and the tax euro integration is one of the most sensitive and the most the hardest work that we still have to do, and that's why we have got together the high-level officials from our partner countries, as well as the representatives of the Ukrainian authorities, the policymakers, business, in order to discuss these ways and to understand where Ukraine has the possibility of choice and where Ukraine should prompt how we should behave in order to get as effective result as possible. That's why the European acquis, it's really, again, this is not a sustainable shape. It's also a possibility in certain issues to select the best and to join in those systems, those elements which Ukraine can choose and can see as part of it will be effective and high quality to implement changes in our legislation when it comes to taxation. All right, so let us start our work with some strategic session where we will be actually discussing the European integration road of Ukraine to the European legislation, the challenges, and bring in line the tax acquis of the European Union. So for this, I would like to invite to our first panel Mr. Taras Kachka, Vice Prime Minister for European and Euro integration. Mr. Taras, please take the floor, whatever is more comfortable for you. Henrik Huitfeldt, Head of the Sector for Economic and Social Policies of the EU Delegation to Ukraine, please. Our distinguished guest, Kristapas Vatyenkus, Minister of Finance of Republic of Lithuania, welcome. And also allow me to invite to us Janusz Kizanevich, Deputy Minister of Finances of the Republic of Lithuania, who also has the honor to join us to our panel. Welcome. We are also waiting until we have online connection of Mr. Ketmantsev. We hope that we'll have this possibility, and then we will be able to talk to him live in the format of the online discussion. Mr. Taras, Since you are in Ukraine, you are associated among Ukrainians with the person who definitely knows where Ukraine, who wants to destroy FOPs, private entrepreneurs, where Ukraine is moving, what Ukraine is breathing in the context of joining the European Union big family. How do you see for Ukraine, in the context of the adaptation of the Ukrainian tax legislation to the European norms and requirements, where do you see Ukrainian difficulty, where do you see Ukrainian advantages, and where do you see the Ukrainian prospects in this area? Thank you so much for this question. Yes, I believe that the question of taxes is so sensitive that I'll try to speak it Ukrainian, and then at a later stage we are also meeting, we will discuss this of cooperation with our colleagues. So from the point of view, from the technical point of view, let's put it this way, and our adaptation of the legislation of Ukraine to the legislation of the EU, there are no big problems. We really have a certain set of certain biases, very technical things. There is this Directive 13 related to VAT about returning like it was invented in the old days. Business behavior has changed so much since those times. But nevertheless, when we were discussing the association agreement with the European Union, difficult to say, this was like 20 years ago, difficult to say, and our Ministry of Finances was saying that this was like a problematic directive, and now in the same way. But again, it's a bias, it's a technical thing which is not affecting anything, and we don't have any big problems in terms of the adaptation of the legislation. And basically, what we have is this significant problem, which is not resolved just by jumping at it, but rather with the daily practice. That's about the normalization of the work of business and the taxation office. So what I'm seeing this in the changes that I'm seeing in the daily life of Poland. 20 years or 25 years ago in Poland, they had the same way. They had to popularize the idea how to submit declarations, how difficult that was for farmers, for people, for households. So now, like in each cafe, in each hotel, whenever you make settlements, every Polish is used to taking in documents in order to use either for the reporting or for the VAT reporting or for decreasing the taxation base to have less taxes paid. So in time it's coming. So we all understand, the whole business understands what we need to resolve. We have to resolve the question related to the simplified taxation system. And for us, unfortunately, politically, this is not technocratically, this is more of a political story, because each attempt to reform something in this spot, immediately Facebook and the business associations perceive it as the attempts to destroy private entrepreneurs, FOPs. This is not the case. The government is very much taking care of the small entrepreneurs, especially in the conditions of war. We are writing some grant programs which private entrepreneurs have been using, and even now this energy-related support for the small and micro business and for the private entrepreneurs. So it absolutely certifies that we are ready to support them and to develop the small entrepreneurship with real money. But at the same time, we should teach us and everybody else that we at least need to run the accounting in such a way that you could properly administrate the VAT. And this is going to be exactly the discussion in the parliament. It has already started. There is this already big waves of debates already taking place. And the debates in terms of taxes, this is about being European. I love how fashionable this was. The economist Piketty, who was writing about capital in 2021 century. He said there are no experts in taxes because everybody pays taxes, so he had this biased opinion. So everybody simply needs to fight for their interests, even if they talk objectively. So this big debate, it's okay, but you still have to understand that the main interest of the government is to make sure that we could provide the normalization of the VAT system, and the role of the individual entrepreneurs is very significant. Of course, this will be debated, but this is not revolutionary. What should have been revolutionary in Ukraine is the reform of the personal income tax. That's where we don't have the European acquis at all, because we don't have the European rules, because there are some indirect taxes, but in terms of this personal income tax, this is a question mark. My personal point of view, in case we can reform it in a proper way, we can open up as much as possible the potential of the small entrepreneurship, of this individual entrepreneurship. But this is like political challenges, and why we need to think about it is because for the success in the European Union, we would need to have, that's an obsolete term, the fiscal consolidation, but we still have to be really aware that we are collecting and paying taxes in full. That returns like twice with the support on behalf of the European Union funds, and therefore behind each discussion on taxes we have to understand that this is all done to make sure we could provide our capacity to defend ourselves now and the big investments from our partners in the after-war recovery. Therefore, the only challenge that we are having this year is still to keep ourselves in shape and to introduce a very sober, rational discussion related to taxes. The rest, our system is absolutely European. Otherwise, in general, those details that need to be finalized, they're not like major. They're not like carrying structures, they're more like optional. Therefore, in this particular case, this is more of a fiscal policy rather than the rules that we have acting. Thank you. Thank you, Taras. Thank you that the European part, that you have kept for the finals the European part, because my next question is to Mr. Hendrik. He is in the representation office of the European Union, is responsible for the areas of public financing, support of business and the social policy. Mr. Hendrik, which steps in the tax integration of Ukraine are most important from the point of view of the European Commission? What do you think? And how does the European Union see the support in Ukraine of these reforms?
Thanks a lot, and thanks a lot for being here this morning, and Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Lithuania, and etc. Because, this winter is harsh, but there will come a spring after the winter, and in many different sense. And I think the EU accession process should be seen as the spring of Ukraine as well. So I will not talk about FOPs at length, but maybe come back to that later, because it's an important topic, I think, as well. Now, I think from the EU point of view, so a fair, predictable, and transparent tax system is a cornerstone of the economic model and the social contract between public authorities, businesses, and citizens. So it is really important. I think here the EU has that ambition to have a fair and transparent tax system. So in Ukraine, so the adoption of the national revenue strategy, and also now the preparation for accession through the national program for the adaptation of Ukrainian legislation to the EU acquis that is going on now is reflecting this understanding that the EU accession is not only about legal alignment, it's also about implementation, and it's a lot of work that needs to be done also on the implementation side, as was said. So, according to the European Commission's enlargement report, Ukraine has made good progress in the last couple of years, but the current level of preparation in the tax side is still at an early stage, but you shouldn't see this as surprising or encouraging. So what matters is the progress of reform and the programs of alignment, and we're moving there. So from our perspective, so there's a number of strategic messages that are particularly important for you. And I think first, EU tax rules is providing a stable and well-tested framework that allows businesses to plan, invest, and operate across borders with confidence. So that's why gradual implementation, wider consultation with stakeholders, and clear communication of reform timelines are essential to have a system that is based on fairness and equal treatment. So these are the core principles of the EU. So all taxpayers should be treated equally, and preferential regimes should be phased out by the time of accession. So this is not an anti-business approach, or on the contrary. It provides or protects honest taxpayers and ensures a level playing field, preventing unfair competition and market distortions. And if I, like my humble opinion on the FOP discussions, I think it's not only an issue about broadening the tax base and bringing people into the tax systems. It's also about the functioning of the economy and the functioning of the labor market. We are in a situation where we need a lot of investment, but investments is stopped for different reasons, among them lack of labor. And you have a lot of people that are locked in now in low productivity jobs because partly of the simplified taxation that makes it difficult for people to grow in the current setup. So a reform of the simplified taxation system will also have a very positive impact on the economy and economic growth and the labor market. So I think this should be seen in a broader way, not as a technical tax issue or anti-corruption measure or tax evasion issue. Is more a broader thing. And finally, also, modern tax administrations should be seen as partners and not adversaries. So these are, I think there are a lot of good practices from the EU that talks about a service-oriented model of the tax experience with compliance based approach. So I think here Ukraine are on that way, but I think still the tax administrations or customs administrations is not seen as the most reliable partners in the least, but they could be, and there are examples how to do that. And looking ahead, so I think from the EU side we have clear expectations of these reforms moving ahead. So so Ukraine is expected to continue the implementation of the national revenue strategy, including the de-shadowing measures that we're now talking about, and to present a credible and realistic timeline for the aligning of VAT and excise systems. That means to continue the alignment with the anti-avoidance and administrative cooperation directives. And finally, also something that we are very much engaged in is to invest in digital solution that will ensure the interoperability with the EU tax system. So we are here to support Ukraine in these topics through our EU for PFM program that is organizing this conference today with our Lithuanian partners. So I'm very happy to continue this discussion with all of you. Thank you.
Пане Генріху, дякуємо вам.
Mr. Henrik, thank you so much. I would like to also ask Svetlana Vorobey, the Deputy Minister for Finances in Ukraine. I know that she is somewhere in the room. Maybe she can be invited on the stage. Ms. Svetlana Vorobey, Deputy Minister of Finances. We have a few questions to you, Svetlana, but for the time being, allow me to address my next question to our guests from the Lithuanian Republic, Mr. Finances, Mr. Kristapas. Mr. Minister, we all know that Lithuania has gone not an easy way of joining into the European community, and the adaptation of your legislation in the same way was not easy. How would you be able to advise to us, taking into account your experience, what is the advantage of Ukraine in the context of that Lithuania has already gone over this way? What would you recommend us to pay special attention for Ukraine during the adaptation of the national legislation to the European taxation requirements?
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to sit in front of you, and thank you for the question. Yes, Lithuania made a long and partly difficult way by joining EU and to the point where are we now at the moment. And your question about adopting the directives and the EU law to Lithuanian law, I think the most challenging part of it was when you have these directives from European Union. There is very tempting to add something to these directives, and not only to take them from one book and put it to another book, but to add something original, add something Lithuanian, and this way, if we talk about tax law, of course, these laws becomes very difficult and sometimes not competitive in the context of a whole European Union, since we have more than 20 countries in it. So that would be my advice. If you have these directives and you want to add them to the law of Ukraine, and I know you are rushing this process very quickly and want to complete it in few years, make it as simple as possible. Don't invent anything. Put it as is in the simplest way. And this is a general advice in the context of tax law. Don't aim for something very sophisticated, very efficient through the complexity. Make the tax law as simple as possible. Simple, robust, easy to collect, easy to calculate. Try to avoid these different exemptions and reliefs. They all sound very nice on paper. They all sound very nice when you present them. But trust me, you will have a hard time administrating it. And if some of them won't be working correctly, it will be tremendously hard to get rid of them. And I saw this in practice, since we had to change our few of our taxes in the way to increase income, and of course that means raising taxes. Yes, and we had to do it because we also, as Ukraine, we also see this threat from the east, and we want to prepare our defense, prepare our military to spend more on military, and we need additional funds in our budget, so we had to do that. And the hardest thing was we had these changes in 6 different directions we made, and the most difficult ones were to pass. It's canceling the reliefs and exemptions of a tax. It's very hard. People and businesses get used to them, and it's to make that taxation equal is very hard thing to do. Trust me on this. Don't do that mistake as we did. Whatever advices, it's of course it will be an easy part to make these changes in your law. That's an easy part. The difficult part, it's implementing it to work, controlling the taxes, and I would suggest to learn and take experience from our tax inspectorate. It's a good example actually, and the director of our tax inspectorate will talk after us. Listen to her and ask a lot of questions. Yes, because as my colleague mentioned, actually our tax inspectorate managed to become a partner of businesses. It has a very good perception between businesses, between population. Maybe not by people, but by business. Yeah, so we managed to succeed in this mission, and it's very important that we are not viewed as a policeman, as a punisher. We're viewed as a partner. Of course, it doesn't mean that everyone is happy to pay taxes, but at least they know it's unavoidable and it's easy to do, and they always can ask for advice. So it's a good example, and it will be your hardest part to make it working. To take the law and to rewrite it to another book, it's an easy part, but to make it work, of course, it's the most difficult part on it. And probably the opportunity you can use, it's the technical advantages we have today that allows us to go from these tax returns and reporting after the period ends. You report how much income you had, how many transactions you had, you fill some kind of form, send to inspectorate, they check it. use the advanced technology, go from it, go straight to the real-time reporting and recording of every single operation, use the big data as much as possible. Data analysis today can do miracles, and if you do that correctly, it will make it easier for tax inspectorate to make this tax law work properly. If you make it correct, it's practically impossible to avoid taxation, and that's actually the path that we're trying to do now in Lithuania, to count on the big data as much as possible. And we see where it goes, but the horizon is very far, and that's a huge opportunities to collecting taxes, to collecting all the taxes, and that's probably the final and one of the most important advices I can give you, and I hope that at least some of them will be successful in Ukraine, and Ukraine will be a prosperous country. Thank you.
Ми маємо можливість зараз
Now, I would like to ask you a general question for a short answer of all the participants of our today's panel. This is a very simple question. Actually, as I said, what steps on Ukraine's part are key to ensuring that the phased implementation of tax reform is manageable, effective, and the one that confirms the irreversibility of all the processes now in Ukraine? Just briefly, if you allow. I would like actually, yes, to answer and to run away. I think that the first thing that we should do now is that we should understand we are not at the beginning of the tax reform. We are actually at the last final stage because we have done a lot already. And we should focus now on our everyday work, for everything to be usable in practice, for business, for citizens, because personal income tax is a very important task and thing, and also to simplify the work of our tax bodies, and digitalization, and also the changes in the mindset will help us to be successful. So we should not think that we should start everything from scratch. No, this is actually the finalization of deep transformations in Ukraine. And with such an approach, the tasks seem not that difficult. So we are not at early preparation stage. Actually, the EU does not know everything about us, whatever it means. The third thing I'd like to mention now is that for the EU, as it is, some things are very important, which were not our focus. This is the interaction of tax bodies when it comes to integration with all EU member states. But it is understandable why we have not developed it before. But this is more a technical issue. So we now understand our task, and we just need to focus, and this is a feasible, actually, task, and sorry for running away now. Thank you. And Christophers, the floor is yours. Henrik?
No, very shortly, I think that what Ukraine should do is one, to build on the experiences of other countries. There are a lot of experiences from EU member states that has been part of this tax policy and tax administration reforms in the last years, and has created further integration, which is also a strength of the single market. So just build on all this experience. Don't create your own bicycle or your own ideas. Build on what has been done, and we are really happy to continue sharing these experiences from different partners. So thanks.
Thank you for you. Пане Крістопас, ваша оцінка, що Україна має зробити?
Christophers, your assessment of what Ukraine should do, what are the key steps for these reforms?
Thank you for the question. I think I already answered the first time when I talked. Partly this question was answered. I can just repeat what for the integration. Do it as simple as possible. Do not invent anything. Avoid tax reliefs. That's the main things. I cannot add anything else, and I'm very happy that so much have already been done, as my colleague mentioned. But of course, the work with the taxes will be a permanent process, and you have to work with it all the time to adapt it to the new reality and use the new opportunities that for example, technological advancement brings. Just keep working with that. Don't complicate it.
Thank you. Дякую за вашу відповідь.
Thank you very much for your answer. Ms. Vorobey, I have a long question to you. It's a global question, if you allow.
Яким є стратегічний план
What is the strategic plan of the Ukrainian government
до адаптації українського законодавства
on the way of alignment with the EU acquis and requirements? What are the challenges of Ukraine, and is Ukraine ready to respond to these challenges in the short period of time? Thank you very much for giving opportunity to answer such a long question. What can we expect? We should expect a lot of work of everyone. And I'm talking here not only about the governmental bodies, law enforcement bodies. No, this is just work of the whole country, of our society, of our citizens. And our strive to become part of the EU was demonstrated in 2014, when together we defended our right to become a part of the EU. We're still on this path, we will be on this path. We are not going to step back, and this is also demonstrated by our struggle, in particular in this war. And I'd like to insist that this is the work of the whole society. That's why we should not only create and introduce rules, but we should also make our business, our society, controlling bodies ready for them to understand why we should do this, to explain why this is our task if we want to be a part of the EU. What are the plans of the government of Ukraine? These plans are reflected in many documents. First of all, this is the National Revenue Strategy that was adopted in 2023 in December. The strategy clearly defines and says that European integration is one of the main paths of tax and customs reform in Ukraine. It clearly says that we should align our legislation with the EU acquis, that we should adopt laws which will be in line with the EU legislation and provisions, to become an equal partner and member of the EU, for us to be transparent, for us to be useful in the European community. And for this, we at least should do the following. The first thing is to develop and adopt legislation which will be harmonized with the EU acquis. We need to reconstruct our administrative system, both for the tax and customs area. For the tax and customs services to really serve people, to have stricter rules, stricter than the ones we have now in Ukraine, but for them not to be that toxic for business and the society. When it comes to the reconstruction of tax and customs administration, the government should be responsible for this, for not to build but to modernize our IT systems, the IT systems of our controlling bodies. This will allow us to make a lot of procedures which shall be manually done by taxpayers using different IT solutions or in a paper form to become automatic, almost not to be noticeable by taxpayers who are ready to pay taxes. Together with this, such modernization of IT systems of our controlling bodies will allow us to finalize our work aimed at developing risk-based system. As for tax administration, the selection of taxpayers that shall not be focused on that deep by our bodies because they pay taxes, and those who just need help to pay taxes, who need additional explanations of some rules or provisions, and also the next groups of those who shall be sanctioned. But this is really not that big part of taxpayers. This shall become our focus for our future work. When it comes to harmonization of our legislation and administration, we can adopt laws, but another thing is to implement them. What shall be done by taxpayers, and most important, what shall be done by controlling bodies? That's why, on the one hand, we have a very simple plan, but on the other hand, it's really complicated. As of today, we're almost ready to submit draft laws to align our tax legislation and hopefully customs legislation to the EU acquis. We have a plan to reform our tax administration, our tax service, including IT solutions, in particular the public finance management system, which will be based on the best European practices which are applied in the EU. And we are developing these systems thanks to our donors, thanks to our colleagues from the EU who share their knowledge with us. And the main thing that we are planning to finalize during the upcoming period before our accession to the EU is the following. We expect from the expert and business community their involvement in developing legal framework, in developing procedures to administer these new rules. So what I'm talking here about? I'm talking here about communication and information exchange while we'll be developing legislation. This also involves explanation of the administrative procedure and raising awareness, and all this shall be done through cooperation with the expert community, because we can train our business only through experts, because they just listen to each other and they hear each other. As for our readiness, I can say that we are ready to this work. We understand the challenges we are going to see. On this path, they will be rather serious, and this work will require efforts from everyone, from the whole society, because here we are talking about changing our mindset to taxation generally. And since I've already got the floor, I'd like to thank sincerely our helpers, our donors, because our successes, our achievements, and the achievements we are going to have in the future and I will not be mistaken if I say this, they depend like by 50% from your support. I'd like to thank all experts helping us today. I would like to thank our colleagues from Lithuania. Edita, I'm happy to see you here. And the Minister, I would like to thank you that the representatives of your ministry, of your country, they always ready to help us. And Mr. Hutfeld, thank you, because you are just leading the process. So we will be successful. I'm 100% sure.
Thank you so much, Ms. Svetlana, for this very inspiring speech. And we would like to ask Mr. Minister to be with us on the stage, Mr. Kristupas, to make sure we could really voice these thanks from whole Ukrainians for that huge assistance that Ukraine has been receiving from Lithuania. I know that you have the following action plan. Unfortunately, you can't stay with us for a whole event, but once again, let me thank you and say respect for what you're doing. Thank you. And moreover, Mr. Janusz will stay, and we will be asking him a question. And while the minister will be away, it will be easier for the deputy minister to give his answers to the questions that we have raised. Mr. Janusz Kizinevich, Deputy Minister of Finances of the Lithuanian Republic, Mr. Minister said that the Lithuanian entrepreneurs understand that the taxes must be paid. The taxes is like the foundation of the life of the state. That's an important element. Could you tell us about some educational work on your road to integration among business, how you are disseminating this information, how this necessity to adapt to the European legislative system was discussed with the business, within the business environment, how difficult that was for you? What was the response? Or did it have a good feedback from the companies? How do you see the results?
Thank you so much. So first of all, it's a great honor to be here in Kyiv today. It's my very first time in Kyiv, and it's really important to see that city standing strong, and it's a huge inspiration. It's a huge inspiration not only to all Lithuanians, but all Europeans, I would say. So please keep strong. And you touched many good questions. I will try to develop and follow up on this. But first of all, as Minister Vaitiekūnas mentioned, Lithuania has walked the path you're currently walking. Of course, it's not. There is no short ways. Actually, it's a long way, complex way, but this is really a direction of travel. And now we as Lithuania, we know that it was good decision to do step by step. I would also start maybe from first recommendation to Ukrainian people that please use all available support that Lithuania, Latvia, other European countries, international financial institutions like IMF offer to you, because this is important. Everyone has specific experience and intelligence. And of course, it's important, do not overcomplicate, as it was mentioned many times today, but do it in your way, do it in your speed, do not foster, but do step by step. So this is my recommendation. Now back to your question. It wasn't easy, and it is not easy to educate people, customers, businesses, small or big, because it's a long way of education and it's only part of financial education. So first of all, we need really trust. Without trust, no one understands why she or he should pay taxes. And for example, when I speak to my friends, colleagues in Scandinavian countries, let's take Denmark as example, they understand that they have to pay taxes and they are very proud of it. They're proud that they can pay taxes in Denmark, for example. So I would say it's a still way for Lithuania to go in this direction, but people and businesses should know where this income, where taxes go. And then, if it's very clarify way, very clarify, very clear information and feedback to the society, on that you can build trust. So I would say this is the way to go, the direction of travel. But it's not one project. It's continuous work. And actually for all countries, including Lithuania, including Nordic countries, because tax system, tax administration is a live process. We have to amend constantly. You have to respond, you have to react what is going in your society, what is going in Europe, and also in broader context. What I touched at the beginning, it was help and support that Lithuania and other countries offer to Ukraine. One good example, and actually I'm very waiting for this and looking forward, it's Lithuania's EU presidency. As you probably heard, we as a Lithuania, we already started the preparation process, because now it's Cyprus leading the discussions, then will be Ireland, and we as a Lithuania, we are starting our representation, our presidency on the 1st of January 2027. So the question is here, how you can use us and how we can do something additional on this, because the country that has presidency has a lot of attention, and it's the period of time when it's much easier to move forward with something. For example, with additional support to Ukraine, with additional programs, with new implementations. So I would strongly encourage also to take into consideration this upcoming period, and again, having in mind all institutions, not only in Lithuania, but in all other friendly countries, like-minded countries, and do together what we can do for Ukraine.
Mr. Janusz, thank you so much. Thank you for your very relevant advice. Thank you for the year 2027 that you have mentioned. We, as the Ukrainian officials, they don't talk that much about it, but yes, we are hearing that 2027, that is the year of some real possible dreams of Ukraine in the context of the accession to the EU. And may God give that Lithuania would not only be just helping us, but really would put up really a massive, good, final full stop in this of our efforts. Yes, we will be talking about this after the coffee break, as well as about the Ukrainian adaptation and the Ukrainian realities for business and for the Ukrainian legislators during our upcoming panels about the practical implementation. And now let us appreciate, say thank you, and let us have some small break. In some half an hour, we'll continue. Thank you. So let us continue our work. Many thanks that you are in this room. And now at this panel, we will be talking about basically about the balance between the quick speed of adaptation of the taxation legislation to align with the EU framework and the stability of this process, foreseeability. We will have the possibility to talk to the participants online, both live, the ones who will be present here in person on this stage, and I would like to invite to Ms. Svetlanas to the stage. That's Svetlana Vorobey, who also attended the previous panel. Ms. Svetlana, once again, please come up to the stage, as well as Svetlana Mikhailovska, Deputy Director of the European Business Association, as well. She also has the possibility to join in on the room, but online we hope we have the possibility to see and to hear Ms. Valeria Micheli, European Commission's Directorate General for Taxation and Customs Union, DJ TaxSud. And today, it's very important for us to hear the Brussels assessment on the Ukraine's readiness in the taxation area and to hear some practical recommendations about the further process. Ms. Valeria, I hope you are with us. Yes, we are seeing you. Very happy to welcome you. And I would want to ask you a very simple question. It's important for us to hear the assessment of Brussels in the level of readiness of Ukraine in the taxation area. Which recommendations you will give to us on the way of adaptation of the Ukrainian tax legislation to the European norms?
Many thanks, dear ministers, deputy ministers, honorable members of parliament, distinguished colleagues, representatives of the business community, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you for the invitation to participate in this forum. It is a pleasure to be here with you today to discuss important developments for Ukraine European future with the Ukrainian authorities, Lithuanian authorities, and all the partners involved. And it is a pleasure, even if I'm online, but it's like I'm with you physically. And I would like also to thank you for bringing together policymakers, tax administrations, and the business community in this high-level event. Taxation is crucial for the EU framework. In the EU framework, indeed, taxation is a key policy field in the European Union, as well-designed and well-functioning tax systems are the backbone for the stability and economic growth of the Union. This system should be non-discriminatory and provide a level playing field for the activities of businesses within the EU single market. Implementing the EU acquis in the field of taxation is therefore a key aspect of integration into the EU single market. The tax system in the EU is not only about legislation, but it's based also on the relations between the tax administrations on the one hand and businesses on the other hand, exchanging information and working together. Building a robust tax system will benefit both the country's economic growth and taxpayers at the same time. The key elements of such systems are legal certainty, transparency, and simplification of tax compliance. The establishment of a fraud-proof tax system will secure competitiveness and give credit to Ukraine at international level and will ensure revenues to be used for the benefits of Ukrainian citizens. Tax revenues are indeed fundamental for the national budget, but also for the EU budget. Taxpayers and businesses have a key role in tax collection. Therefore, they should be supported by simple compliance requirements and transparent guidance. Integrity of officials in the tax administration is essential to fight corruption. In the context of this process of accession, several goals have already been achieved by Ukraine so far. The Commission stands ready to support Ukraine in this process. The conclusion of the screening phase of the legislation last year was successful. According to the European Commission latest enlargement report, Ukraine has made good progress in the field of taxation, but further progress and work should be done to improve the alignment of the national legislation, build administrative capacity, and digitalize the tax service in line with EU standards. Looking ahead, the EU has clear expectation. We expect Ukraine to sustain the implementation of the national revenue strategy and to present credible and realistic plans for aligning its VAT and excise systems. We also expect Ukraine to continue progress on anti-avoidance and administrative cooperation in the international scenario, and to invest in digital solutions that will eventually ensure interoperability with the EU tax systems. Digitalization indeed could bring a lot to the tax system. Digitalization is the base for the exchange of information without adding complexity and ensure at the same time effective reporting. This requires to set up digital systems able to collect the information and exchange it with the member states. Given the breadth and complexity of these requirements and the fact that several EU systems will undergo major upgrades, I mentioned a couple of them, VIDA and VS, for example, it is important that the ongoing IT consolidation projects with international partners take into account several elements, such as a complete set of mandatory EU tax IT system that should be completed, developed for accession, then required national database interface and integration layers should be developed for each system category. The sequencing and prioritization guidance provided by DG TaxUD requires, we know, significant development at national levels. And it is important that implications of interoperability, cybersecurity, data governance, and hosting infrastructures are taken into account in the overall architecture or IT architecture of the Ministry of Finance. In this respect, there are some important criteria for determining prioritization at your level. And these are, for example, related to the complexity and the resources needed for the developments at national level. Expertise of the member states network is available, as you know, under the Fiscalis program or TAIEX instrument in order to organize direct contacts or working visits to EU member states. Business consultation and participation in the process is key for a robust, well-functioning tax system. To conclude, the Commission will continue accompanying Ukraine in its journey towards membership. Thank you for your attention.
Пані Валерію, дякую вам за ваш
Ms. Valerie, allow me to say thank you for your speech and allow me to ask the clarification question, taking into account the amount of information that you are possessing. Which elements of the taxation legislation of Ukraine would be most difficult to be adapted to the European norms and to the European requirements? What Ukrainians can face and what would be most difficult for us in this endeavor?
I would say that there are some typical difficulties that we have seen they normally happen in the adaptation to the EU acquis. And one of those, of course, is to train the officials to the new legislation. Taking also into account that the EU legislation at the moment, as you know, is evolving. We have important changes ongoing, and so this is a challenge to adapt, while at the same time the EU framework is evolving. So the adaptation to the internal market can be challenging and can be a moving target. We recognize this, and we are aware that this is a typical difficulty, and we are ready to support you in this process and to help you with this.
Thank you so much. Very precious that Europe is together with us and really to help Ukraine in this very important journey. Thank you so much. And we still have the possibility to engage to our conversation. Another distinguished person who is joining us online. This is no surprise for you, but nevertheless, with great pleasure, we would want to invite to take the floor with us, with our audience, Mr. Danilo Hetmantsev. He is the head of the Verkhovna Rada Committee for Finances and Customs Policy, and it's exactly this person through whose committee we have the most important legislative issues related to taxes, customs, and very evidently that Mr. Danila can say to us how difficult it would be to adapt our legislation. And maybe not. Maybe we, at some already part of the journey that we don't have to worry about. We simply need to do what's still ahead of us and simply quietly rest assured that we are the winners. As the great member of the European community, Mr. Danila, welcome. Very happy to hear you. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to heroes. Surely, in reality, in case we're talking about whether we should rest on the laurels, rest assured, no, it's too early. Do we have any other alternatives other than the implementation of the European legislation in the taxation area as well as in other areas? Well, we don't have any other alternatives. This is not the question of the political choice, that's about the survival of our country, and I'm convinced that this is also about strengthening the European Union, because what we have today, it seems to me, it's also necessary for the EU. It can also pertain to the taxation. But let us start the challenges. By the way, I would like to mention, in case we say our committee is responsible not only for the taxes, but also for finances. This is the banking sector. In case we compare all these three areas, it requires the taxation legislation needs most of the implementation, and it has the biggest peculiarities compared to other two areas. So they are not so much difficult, but it's about taxation, and it's not about such a big circle of subjects. So which challenges we have today? In the first place, this is the uncertainty in terms of the completion of the war. Of course, we all want to make sure that it will finish this year, that we achieve the peace, that this peace will be sustainable, but only God knows what is the date of the completion of the war. And we have to be based immediately from the two scenarios. It's the completion of the war as well as, unfortunately, the continuation of the war. So this uncertainty gives birth to the development of the taxation base, and on the other hand, the necessity to expand somewhere, at least preserving those preferences that were given to some special areas of our economy, which are connected with the military production. And I have in mind the defense complex that has to pick up with the volumes of supplies, create new capacities, new workplaces, and it's necessary not only for us, it's necessary for the European Union. Also, the second challenge, that the amount of those acts of EU acquis, it's actually growing, this volume is growing. We have more than 40 acts in the area of taxation, and in case we compare our taxation code and the VAT administration in taxation code, we have 31 articles devoted to it, but only in one directive, 112 of the EU, that's 414 articles, so the volume is bigger, the level of regulation is deeper, and for us, of course, this is a challenge. And we need not only to adapt, but also to foresee all details, all nuances, and to adapt them to our Ukrainian ground. Apart from that, we also have to take into account the legal positions of the European Court of Justice. We believe that it's not enough to formally rewrite the norms of the directives. It's important to mandatorily understand the spirit of law and the application of law that is done in the European Union, and in which way, including these law application practices of the European Court of Justice, we have to implement this into our law. And another aspect, although we are all in a hurry, we can't implement it immediately. We have the decision of the Constitutional Court, and which makes us have some transitional period for any taxation norms that we are accepting. And we also have to understand that the taxpayer, based on their taxation period, they do need some transaction period. On the other hand, we have certain possibilities and resources which exist already. In the first place, that's the formed institutional framework, the National Revenue Strategy until 2030, where there are some clear roadmap what we should do. And I'm so much happy that we for many years we have this very clear plan, well-grounded, and understanding what we have to do, moreover approved with our international partners.
The Cabinet of Ministers is also the subject of legislative initiative when it comes to all these amendments, and we work together with the Ministry of Finance, with the Cabinet of Ministers, trying to implement everything that they develop and draft, and we closely cooperate with all stakeholders. And also we should highlight here unprecedented support of our partners from the EU, including the organizers of today's event. They help us a lot in implementing this legislation. We have some achievements and a success in implementing some of the provisions of the EU acquis. We have adopted the anti-avoidance law and implementation of anti-PEPs into the legislation of Ukraine. And I think that we did everything on time, and we have certain practice of how to implement these provisions. Moreover, we should remember about flexibility in crisis. We need to adjust to challenges of the war. So, and no other country, no other EU country has such experience. We have some programs done, and this is the high level of digitalization in particular the monitoring system when it comes to VAT administration and generally e-VAT administration system. And some experts believe that this system is more developed and more efficient compared to similar systems of the EU. And this demonstrates that some countries of the EU implement what we already introduced in our into their legislation. For example, the system of e-invoices and preliminary registration can be found in several EU member states that already use this. And the system that blocks tax invoices is not what we can see in the EU, but there are some similar systems. For example, in Poland, a controlling body can block accounts, meaning bank accounts, and the full access to bank accounts, bank secret. This is what we don't have in our country. So these are wider powers for tax administration compared to what we have. So we are expecting some discussions here. And so there could be some possibility to maneuver, to make decisions together with the experts and business inside the country, and of course with the EU representatives. It is also important to mention tech gaps, which is very important in the EU when it comes to VAT. And if we compare X-gap data in the EU and what we have in our country, the percentage is the same, around 10%. And this demonstrates that our VAT administration is rather effective. But of course, we understand that we cannot introduce our no rules, and we need to adjust to the provisions of the EU, and of course we are ready to do this. But we hope that our positive experience can be also used in the EU. What steps we've already done in implementation? For example, it's controlled taxation. This is the taxation of controlled foreign companies, and this is also Google Tax, and we introduced it in 2021 when it comes to VAT for e-services. When it comes to tax information exchange, we've implemented two directives, DAC 2 and 4. But of course, here we still have some room for the improvement. And as for excise duties, perhaps we've heard about our draft law on e-excise, and unfortunately it was postponed to November this year. But anyway, this is a progressive law, and it is even better than the rules existing in the EU when it comes to taxation of excisable goods. And shortly about our plans. The next week, we are planning to adopt in first reading DAC 7. This is the taxation of e-platforms. And the draft law has been in the parliament for quite some time, and we insist, and our European partners, IMF, and our EU partners insist on this, that it should be already adopted. So we still have to work with the oppositions, but we hope for the better. So it's for DAC 1, DAC 2, and the implementation, the worth, the amendment, actually, the draft law was supposed to be submitted last year, but that hasn't been done yet. So in the Verkhovna Rada, we are ready actually to consider this draft law, but it depends on elections actually. So of course we would like elections to take place as soon as possible, because that could mean the end of the war. but still we should look at the situation. We are waiting actually for the Cabinet of Ministers to submit draft law, and we are ready to implement. As for taxation of parcels, the threshold of 150 euros, this is also the requirement of the IMF. The draft laws have been also submitted to the committee. They have not been recommended to the Verkhovna Rada yet, but we have a strategy how to do everything in the nearest future. Apart from this, the Cabinet of Ministers is drafting amendments to the tax legislation when it comes to the dividend taxation that is used to subsidiaries, companies in particular. And also we are working on the taxation of interests and royalties of the companies of different states. So this is about our plans and progress. Something is ready. Some draft laws we are waiting from the Cabinet of Ministers. Would like to thank you very much for your support, for cooperation, and please believe me, your integration is the biggest task for our team, for our committee. Of course, after peace, and of course, unfortunately, we cannot have such a big impact on when the peace can be achieved, but we can do everything to speed up our Euro integration. Thank you very much, Mr. Gitmantsev. Thank you very much for finding time. Thank you very much for sharing information about your plans. And we hope that they will be fully implemented. And actually, the Ukrainian path to the European community depends on this a lot. Thank you very much. And now, Ms. Vorobey, I have a question to you now. Oh, no, to you, actually. So, Mr. Gitmantsev has shared with us what we should do to align to the EU legislation, and I have a question to you. So, you are an institution, a body that should find a balance and should actually feel the Ukrainian realities, the EU strives of Ukraine's strive to become an EU member state, and also the resources that we have, not to destroy what we have, to adapt to the tasks that we have, and also as a part of alignment of the Ukrainian legislation to the EU acquis. And there is a very popular word combination, a roadmap. And I know that in your ministry you have such a roadmap. Can you briefly describe the state of play and what are the priorities of this roadmap? Thank you for calling me an institution or a body, but to be honest, I can only guide the institution, but actually the results depend on a huge team working in the Ministry of Finance, in the tax service, and also on experts from the EU, IMF, who support us. So this is a big team. And of course, yes, we have this roadmap. It is impossible to work without it because we have a lot of tasks to do. And we have several roadmaps, and the most important one mentioned by Mr. Gitmantsev, this is the National Revenue Strategy. It is rather detailed. It has its deadlines, and we managed to stick to this time frame. But as for the latest negotiations on accession of Ukraine and also those political issues that we can see around Ukraine, they actually have their impact. Mr. Kachkar has mentioned 2027, and the National Revenue Strategy is up to 2030. So it is not that far from today, and actually it will not depend on me or on those who are present here today in this hall. No, everything will depend on other processes we cannot affect. But we are ready to this because actually our path to the EU cannot be changed, cannot be altered. And Mr. Hetmantsov, Mr. Kachka, and I have already mentioned this today. This is our must-have. We should just need to accept this, and we should do everything possible to make it real. So what we should do for this? We have a second document that is being developed at the level of the Cabinet of Ministers, and it shall be also formalized. This is the national plan for the adaptation of the Ukraine's national legislation to the EU acquis. This plan has its prospects, clear deadlines for short-term, mid-term, and long-term activities to align our legislation. And we're talking here not only about tax legislation, but whole legislation to the EU acquis. As for alignment and reforming of the tax legislation, and together with our colleagues from the European Commission, from the projects financed by the European Commission and who support us in harmonizing our legislation, in undergoing screenings of the European Commission to verify the readiness of our country. And as of today, I can say that we have a clear understanding of what we should do in terms of drafting laws for our legislation not to become an obstacle on our accession to the EU. This will not be a 100% adaptation. We have transitional periods. There are some provisions that can be introduced later after the EU accession. So these are the provisions that does not have a direct impact on the taxation and accounting and dissemination. And so, but there are the provisions that should have been adopted before the accession. And these are our priorities, namely implementation of the main directives for direct and indirect taxation. This is the biggest work that we should do, that we should complete to reform our tax legislation. As for direct taxes, and you actually asked about the most challenging task. I think that the most challenging task is the alignment of direct taxation legislation. This is the personal income tax and also the tax on profit, and Mr. Gutmantsov has already mentioned the rules, ATAT, GARD, transfer pricing. So these are the provisions regulating corporate taxation. And so they are on the edge of rules and principles. That's why we should really understand them to be able to implement them properly. And so we should not only train the staff of the controlling bodies of the Ministry of Finance, but we also should train business expert environment for them to be able to properly perceive, adapt, and apply these rules. Because this is there on the edge of rules, between the rules and principles. And so, to be honest, we have already prepared draft laws with the direct involvement of the EU experts. They are in line with the requirements of the directives of the EU. But they should still be approved by our expert and business communities. Last year, the draft law on amending transfer pricing provisions was published on the website of the ministry, and in the nearest future we are going to publish the provisions on amendments to implement ATAD rules that have not been implemented yet, because partially we have done it already. There are some provisions that have not been adopted yet. Mr. Getmantsov has mentioned them today, and they are rather complex. They are rather difficult to properly understand them. And so now we are talking about 2027, but even if it were for 2030, still we need time to properly understand these provisions. And I think that we will change our working system to implement these provisions. So now we are preparing, developing these provisions, and using this opportunity, I'd like to invite experts, the associations, and everyone who has this willingness and who has the knowledge to be involved in reviewing these draft laws. I've already discussed it with Mr. Paulus, representing you for PFM, the possibility to involve business and experts to the developing of these draft laws, to have such a trilateral approach to the review, meaning the tax service, experts, and the representatives of the European Commission. And I do understand that not all of them will be supported by our business community. Because they are more strict when it comes to taxation, but this is a precondition of our accession to the EU. This is about direct taxation. As for indirect taxation, this is VAT, excise, duty. It will be simpler when it comes to understanding, but more difficult when it comes to preparing draft laws and provisions. As for VAT, we still have some directives that can be adopted at the later stage, tax-free and other directives that don't have the direct impact on our relations with the EU. But there are also provisions that we must implement. And this is now about terminology. Unfortunately, the terminology of the tax code differs from the EU acquis, even when it comes to wording, let alone proper understanding. And here I would also like to invite experts to be involved in this process, because this will be the basis of the future reform, and this is the precondition of the possibility to finalize VAT legislation. When it comes to the policy matters, administration is another important topic. And during a coffee break, I was asked, will VAT be preserved in the format as we have nowadays? We can answer this question when we could have a proper understanding of how all legislation is being reformed and how automated VAT management system is in line with the VAT management in the EU. At least we will need to introduce procedures that can connect our controlling bodies with controlling bodies of 28 EU member states. We haven't had any practice like this yet, because now we are collecting VAT, and VAT reforms is conducted through our budgets, through our administration. But after accession to the EU, this will be organized centrally from Brussels, and this will depend on the readiness of our IT systems, of how to properly do this distribution. So we need to join the EU tax administration, and some provisions will be changed. As for blocking, and this is my personal opinion, that the blocking as we have it today could not be preserved in the future, but the positive function shall be preserved. It shall be covered by another subsystem, CRM, or automated risk management system. So CVIT, this is a risk-focused, risk-based system, and this blocking shall be transferred at another level.
That's about the norming the main taxation norms. When it comes to another block, and I'm already finishing, this is the block that is about the so-called DACs, DAC 2, DAC 4. My colleague said, Danilo, that's the exchange about financial accounts and the information exchange, CBC. Experts know what it means. The third draft law, it's about platforms. So these are the norms which regulate the information exchange between the EU members also and their taxation authorities, including the inside. That's very important. Why? Because to build up a viable risk-based system, to automate the system of administration, to automate it as much as possible, in which the corruption risks will be minimized, the people intervention will be minimized, so we should have the relevant and as wide as possible information about the taxpayers, and exactly these exchanges, they help to make this. Are there any plans? Yes, the plans are there. We have different groups that have certain sections. Additionally, we have the experts of the European Union, and in case we have also experts from the business environment. I believe that all of it we can overcome, and most important, that we could come to consensus to the moment of accepting the norms in the Verkhovna Rada. This will definitely impact the capacity of the Verkhovna Rada, of the Parliament, to accept, to adopt these drafts as laws, and to give the understanding to the European Commission that we are ready for the accession, that our legislation, our law is compliant with EU acquis. A huge layer, it's about administration. It's more about the taxation, but since the Ministry of Finances is the coordinator of the work of these coordinating authorities, that's why we are also doing this, thanks to Ms. Lesa, the acting head of the DBS. She is very comfortable working with us over reforming administration, using the reform of the IT provision of the Taxation Office, the Ministry of Finances, and the system of public finances. That's briefly it, in case I've answered your question. Yes, Ms. Svetlana, yes. Thank you for being so thorough in answering my question. But I also have another question to another Svetlana, who is representing today the European Business Association. She is Deputy General Director of the European Business Association. Ms. Svetlana, how does business look at the European integration? Which challenges they see in front of themselves? And how do they get ready for opening up the enormous market of the European community for the Ukrainian producer?
Може спробувати інший взяти, або натисніть, будь ласка.
Да. Працює. По-перше, дякую за
Well,
запитання.
in the first place, thank you so much for the question. I wanted to welcome everybody, to thank that you have found time and effort in this difficult weather to attend to this important issue. For me, it's also an important that at the panel where we have the representatives of the authorities of the European Union, Ukrainian authorities, I represent the business community. The European integration is definitely a priority. The European Business Association, which I am representing for already 26 years, has this as the flagship priority because we were also supporting at this stage of the non-official but then official negotiations of EU about the association agreement, about the free trade agreement. That's why all of our already 29 committees in the framework of the association that represent different industries and different businesses, to whom I'm also very thankful that they are staying in Ukraine, they continue to pay taxes. So all of these committees, one way or the other, they have in their strategies for this year the promotion of the European integration as a priority. That's why it seems to me it echoed a lot with me is what Svetlana said at the previous panel. It's that what unites, that's what unites today the state, the business, the society. So this is something that we are all striving at, something that we all want to have, and any positive signals from our European partners about our perspective, they are all perceived very positively by business. And that's something that I would want to say separately because it's a signal for companies from the European Union, from other companies who we are calling in to Ukraine to make recovery, to make investments into the manufacturing. Therefore, it's very important when you talk about these prospects, and now that we have started to hear from our European partners who are being very diplomatic always, they avoided this question of dates. Now we are starting to see at least some time frame. In reality, that's very encouraging for the business community. In the context of possible challenges, separately we talked, and the panels talked about different issues. I would structure this to 4 different areas. The first area, these are the transitionary periods. For the business, it's very important to have the reasonable transition periods. It's not about the preparedness of business in general to adapt. Of course, that also takes time. As Svetlana said, the time is necessary not only for the training of officials of the controlling bodies, but it also needs time for allowing IT systems to train people inside companies, operational accounting databases, also agreements and fine-tuning of agreements and contract agreements with our partners. All of it takes time. Secondly, is the timely and as soon as possible warning of the business about the possible changes in the legislation. Why this is important? This is important not only at the stage of the publication or registration of the projects. It's important to know the idea where we are moving. That is the foreseeability. That is something that is being demanded of us from our European partners with whom we are interacting. I mean, in the business context. What is planned? Which potential risks? How we can fine-tune the system? And the third aspect is very much connected. This is the transparent and constructive dialogue. So at the stage when the idea comes up to introduce changes or innovations into the legislation, it's important to discuss this. This is not anything new that we're asking for Ukraine. Of course, this is the practice of the European Union, when some ideas in reality, the legislative process itself in the European Union, it's still quite lengthy. This is the stage of the discussion with various focus groups, with all stakeholders. For us, it's very important, and we appreciate a lot the dialogue that we're having today, at least the European Business Association. That's, again, huge thanks both to the controlling bodies, authorities, the government, the Verkhovna Rada. It's necessary to preserve this and to expand this in the context of our legislative activity in terms of the alignment of the legislation. And the last but not least, that's about the understanding and being aware of the variativeness of the European legislation, the variativeness of the European directives. Each country, the member of the EU, also especially in the context of the taxation legislation, there is the possibility to implement own regulations. And about such alternatives, about such possibilities, business has to know. And the decisions that must be made by the government, by the state, by the Verkhovna Rada, they have to rely to make sure that the business and the state would be as comfortable as possible. Because nowadays, like never before, we all understand how important it is that the business would continue to function, because the business pays taxes, and the taxes go to our defense and to our army. That's the workplaces as well. That's why summarizing the maximum transparency, maximum foreseeability, these are all these important issues that the business community is emphasizing. And in case we summarize, I would also like to share our assessment, because European Business Association is doing permanent researches, and that's also from the point of view of the investment attractiveness, from the point of view of the taxation legislation. That's why our last result of the taxation index in the end of the last year showed some small growth, but still the integral indicator still stays. I can't help mentioning the significant growth of the increase of the level of the service. So we came to some positive 3.1 indicator. So thank you separately on this. Thank you. Thank you, Svetlana. Appreciate so much, Svetlana Mikhailovska, and many thanks to Svetlana Khorobets. Thank you for your all great replies. So let's stop by thanking Ms. Svetlana for this beautiful illustration of at which stage we are. And also before the next panel, it's important to have some rest, to have because we were discussing at the next panel the reform of the taxation administration. That's definitely a question that for many is quite a cornerstone question, and we are searching for answers for this question during the next panel. So let us have some rest now.
Давайте тоді починати наш наступний етап, бо як на мене, ця частина
Let's start our next stage, because to me this seems like most important, most difficult, because at this panel we will be talking about the digital breakthrough, the new phase of the taxation administration. This is not only about the new IT solutions, that's about changing the logic from control to service, to partnership, to trust. And exactly about this, we will be talking with our distinguished speakers, how to make it in such a way that the European standards would work not only on paper, but rather in a daily interaction with the taxpayers, how to bring up this, how to call this feeling from the taxpayer of the necessity of dignity and inevitability of paying taxes, and to believe this as an honor, like we have heard today during our first panel. The Lithuanian, the Danish taxpayers are proud that they can work in their own country, pay taxes, and thanks to this they can allow the country to live on, to develop, and to build up their future. That's how we are going to talk about, and allow me to invite to participate in this session our distinguished speakers, participants. That's Lesia Karnauch, acting head of the State Tax Service of Ukraine, please. Also Yedita Yanushena, head of State Tax Inspectorate of Republic of Lithuania. We are also joined by Baiba Šmitiroke. She is the Director General of the State Revenue Service of Latvia. and very happy to see, and I'm sure many of you on the stage would also be very happy to see Anka Feldhusen, business ombudsman. Many in Ukraine remember Ms. Anka as the representative of the Ukraine of the German interests in Ukraine. Today she is the ombudsman. She is bringing this very high. Ukraine doesn't leave our own people. Very happy that you're with us in Ukraine and with the Ukrainians. Ms. Lesa, in reality, in front of you, that is a very difficult job to change the taxation administration, to change how the tax perception is from something that is inevitable to something that should be done with honor and dignity. That is not easy. So which objectives you see for this? How to change the imagination of people in a way that the taxes is not a burden only, but it's a necessity, and this is also a future of the country. Many thanks for this invitation, for the possibility to talk today and about your questions. In the first place, allow me to start. There are some classical functions of the state tax administration in every country that can be changed. Of course, we would want to communicate with the society, and the key objective of the state tax service is to fill the state budget with taxes. And from this understanding, from this learning, you have to move forward. That's honest in the direction of the taxpayer. We're working not exclusively. That actually builds up the new level of trust. That's my belief, and also the belief of the state tax service, which I believe is also confirmed by our partners. Our partners are our colleagues in the government, and I'd like to say thanks to the Ministry of Finances and the team, and to Svetlana, who is helping us a lot. I would like to thank our partners from the European Union. I would like to say thank you to the representatives of CSO. It's been a pleasure to hear that we are seeing the index of growing trust to the taxation office, that our newly introduced services, they really change the perception of the taxation. And I can't help saying thank you to my colleagues, to Edita, to Baiba, for them joining in. And although quite a harsh winter, this heavy shelling, they have demonstrated that Ukraine is much closer near us, much closer than it seems to be. And when we have to be on the same stage, it's different from when I see you on the screen. It's really great. Allow me to show some small presentation. We have prepared this with the team. I would like to show this to you. This is not the presentation just to show you some nice pictures, because you know, during the last years, a lot of representatives of the state authorities have been criticized for pictures and for the presentations. In reality, we are practicing an approach where, with the development of presentations, in order to visualize our plans, to visualize our priorities. This is one of the methods in management that is really being very helpful, because I think with the pictures you better perceive the text. So a few words about what we are doing and what we're planning to do. We can go to the next slide. Oh, do you have the clicker? Oh, great. So, today we talked about it, and we'll be also working on that. That what we are seeing is a change in the philosophy of the state tax service. There is a transition to a well-balanced model when the service function is balancing with the controlling and with the fiscal function. And to do this is not so easy. That's what you mentioned absolutely correctly, because it pertains not only to the changes in the procedures of administration or the procedures of collecting taxes. It's also in the first place about taking into account the factor, the behavior, both of the employees of the state tax service as well as the taxpayers in communications with the state. That's why it's quite a difficult objective. Nevertheless, I believe that we are on the proper way and will be moving forward with this. In the first place, in 2025, we paid a big attention to transitioning to a preventive model. That's when the priority is given to consultations and clarifications that fully complies with the philosophy of the main key reform of the state tax service is the implementation of the risk-based approach, because consultation and clarification should always be in front of appearing the risks, and this is one of the forms of managing the risk. In 2025, we tried to also simplify the access to consultations, because we have some difficulties in the state in terms of the access to normal services, the ones that we are used to it. Face-to-face contact is limited in many regions of Ukraine, and therefore we are actively implementing the contact center that we have. In case you see on the slide, we have more than 1 million inquiries. This is not only about the statistics, about digits, but this service is being very actual. Still, people are using it. We tried as much as possible to implement the personalized approach, a dialogue instead of formal letters. A dialogue is happening with all communications means which are available for us, and also in the offline format. We also launched on the Entrepreneurs Day in 2025, on the 8th of September, the new form of communications. That's the offices of the tax consultants. In the future, we will reconsider the functionality of the centers of tax consultants, not to avoid duplications. Why we launched it, what was the main ideology? Because as of today, lots of Ukrainians, being in very difficult life circumstances, they require the feeling of protection, the feeling of justice, fairness, and just even to talk, to communicate. And that's why, based on the wish to be as much as possible to be available for communications, we started the initiative of the Office of Tax Consultants. So during the first 4 months, we provided over 41,000 consultations. I can tell you immediately this is not the most popular service. It's used mostly by the individuals, while the legal entities nowadays, they don't trust that much the state tax service in order to get the consultations. Nevertheless, we are planning to continue the development of the service, because the key difference from the center of serving the taxpayers is because in the center it's mostly about administrative services, while the Office of Tax Consultants has a wider range of practical consultations. And you can talk directly with the practitioners who every day communicate with the taxpayers. The challenge of the time is the barrier-free environment, lots of veterans, lots of people with the limited possibilities, mobility. So whatever pertains to expanding the possibility of access to the state tax service, we're trying to implement as much as possible through creating some technical means as well as through training of our staff. And of course, one of the key objectives, which is on the verge with our controlling functions, it's what we call the de-shadowing. And what it means, from the service part, we are trying to analyze the reasons of such phenomena and to use the preventive approach to the moment until we are using our control mechanism. Now a little bit about the digital transformation. Thanks to our common efforts of the big number of people that were engaged throughout a lengthy period of time, and this was happening not only because in 2025 we were being very active but back in 2020 there was an idea to introduce certain amendments. At some point in time, Lithuania shared their experience, how the e-audit is working. We really loved it. It was the team of Ukrainian professionals, and that's how the e-audit arrived to Ukraine. So in 2025, we finally completed the development, started the production environment, starting from the 1st of January 2026. The system, which is called e-audit, softy files, we were trying to clarify, to fine-tune, and moreover, according to the general agreement with the Ministry of Finances, we're not planning to stop. because we want to go forward. We loved it. It was also loved by the employees of the state tax service, how this mechanism is operating, which usefulness it brings, how it saves time. So I really hope that it will be also loved by the taxpayers, because this is also an element of trust and forming trust between us. We have also launched the automated STS Treasury Bank Exchange in terms of tax debt recovery and repayment. That's where I can say not all the taxpayers enjoyed this mechanism. We love it because we see a huge growth on a monthly basis in terms of revenues from this mechanism. And the employees, this is no secret. We have a number of people who have been working in the taxation office for a long time, and they have people who are using this, they're forcing in their normal life. So it saves really their resource. This is not very much loved by the taxpayer, but with common effort, we are forming the correct attitude towards this instrument. We will be developing it further, and we are making a big emphasis on it because we believe this is one of the sources to fill the state budget without expanding the taxation base, without the changes to the taxation legislation. And of course, we have the excise and electronic traceability for such kind of goods, excise goods. This was talked about today. We planned to make this as soon as possible. As of now, we have, but starting from the 1st of November 2026, this mechanism is about to start its operation. We are getting ourselves ready on a daily contact with the Ministry of Digital Transformation to make sure that we don't have any opportunity to say that we need to move other deadlines. Analytics services without the high quality data, it's very difficult to make the proper managerial decisions. That's why we're trying to develop this area as well. We met a lot with the taxpayers, with the associations, and we presented our new achievements. Also, every month we are updating the dashboards of monitoring the tax revenues. In the room we have present the representatives of the NGOs who are helping to do this. We launched the tax control chatbot that allows the taxpayer to submit information about some violations that they have found out, and the taxation office can respond quicker. Data analytics, risk identification and support for risk-based control. It will continue because it really certifies to the real economic activity of the business entities, and that helps us to find out the condition in which many sectors are. And the electronic account, we talked a lot about it. That's one of the most key in the area of digitalization, transformation, what has to be, because it's been around since a long time as a service, this electronic account for taxpayers, but since it was developed and gradual maintenance, so many other things appeared, so we are used to such convenient services such as DIA, such as iOS Android updates, so we really feel that we need to modernize electronic account of the taxpayer in part, at least, so it's more comfortable in using it, but definitely we should not forget about its main function, since this is the main window of communication with the state taxation service. So all of the services that we have there, that's more than 130 forms of reporting that our taxpayers can submit. So the whole functionality has to be
As for compliance, risks, CRM, as Svetlana Vorobey has already mentioned today, I'd like to confirm that as of today, this is our most important task to implement risk-based approach in all areas of tax administration. This is not only about control functions, audits, etc. CRM should be everywhere. And I'm happy that the team of our service keeps developing every day and understands that risk-based approach can be used even to collect tax debt. Risk-based approach must be applied in personal income tax administration, and the same could be told about the whole-ranging functions. So this is a huge challenge of the team for the team of our service and for taxpayers. But without implementing proper risk-based approach, it will be very difficult to develop to that bridge of trust we are discussing today. What we've done this year to demonstrate to ourselves and to the society our new vision for CRM implementation. And this is based on the information of my colleagues who have been working in the service for 20 years. For the first time, we were able to prepare an analytic report before drafting audit plan. So we applied sectoral analysis, and then we went down through the risk criteria to the selection of economic operators who were included in our plan for 2026. In 2025, basing on the newly developed risks, we created 3 lists of taxpayers of the high risk level who could be potentially included in the audit plan, and then using Order 524 of the Ministry of Finance, we compared these taxpayers, we analyzed them, we also analyzed similarities and differences in the list and the audit plan. Our next task is to optimize to the maximum extent possible our approach to drafting a plan for audits and checks. We have a club of white business on the territory of high-level tax trust. So we have the special conditions for communication with the taxpayers who are in line with the criteria. And so we have submitted for the consideration of the Verkhovna Rada the expansion of this list, and we use this approach to deepen our services for such taxpayers and to shorten the time of checking them. In July 2025, following the National Defense Council, we approved the approved method for checks by the State Customs Service. This affected our actual checks that decreased by 27% for 6 months. Why is it possible? So the tax code allows us, if we have information, for example, that we can get through the chatbot, to have such a check. But we made a decision to have at least risks to conduct checks of payers, because to avoid such situations when a competitor can provide some information against their competitors for us to check them. That's why we now have real results, and we continue applying this approach. Interagency coordination and joint checks. We cooperate with all public and state bodies to gain quality data describing the reason of behavior of taxpayers. We cooperate with the State Customs Service, with our Treasury Service, with the financial monitoring, law enforcement bodies, all those entities who can provide information to us, unbiased information. And here I would like to speak about IT consolidation, which is envisaged by the National Revenue Strategy, and I hope that with the support of our partners, we'll be able to continue developing the project to be able to collect quality information that we can use in our risk-based approach. This will help us to have new analytical processes, and I would like to thank the Ministry for the leadership, because this is a very difficult question. It is a very difficult task for us as a service and for the Ministry of Finance even more. But this is the path that we've selected. I would like to thank Council of Business Ombudsman. Thank you very much for helping us with pre-trial issues, and we now have first successful case of tax mediation without amendments of the current legislation. We plan to continue this work. Now we almost have the second case. And now top 4 audit companies refer to us saying that their customers are aware of this first successful case and would like to use it as well. So once again, this demonstrates that taxpayers are looking for dialogue. Our service is looking for a dialogue, and tax mediation is a tool that we should use to introduce this dialogue. And of course, interagency cooperation in fighting economic crimes. We have launched the new phase or stage of cooperation with the Bureau of Economic Security. You know that this bureau is undergoing a deep transformation related to the analytics and the fighting of the systematic illnesses of our economy, like manufacture of counterfeit goods, accessible goods, illegal retail sales, a lot of different things. And one of the successful cases that we've already done together with the Bureau and the monitoring and with the involvement of the Business Ombudsman Council is our cooperation with the representatives of household equipment market. Last year we voiced our general vision of how operators should do. This is the fair salary, no salary in envelopes, because this is a fair industrial burden, and also the application, the usage of this fiscal bills, and the analytics that we conducted during 3 months demonstrates that the business is ready to cooperate with us. Businesses just need time to reconstruct their financial model, because businesses also plan their activities. But the first 3 months demonstrate that there is a willingness to develop, to reconstruct, restructure their activities. So I've briefly covered the topic of CRM, our achievements in 2025. In 2026, we will continue implementing CRM in all key processes of the state tax service. We are now preparing to draft a report that we will submit to the government, the report about pilot project implementation. We will be honest in demonstrating what was successful, where we failed. We will demonstrate what we lack in this process for the government and the parliament to have enough information to make decision about further activities related to CRM implementation. And by 2030, as you can see on this slide, this is fully harmonized, synchronized with the National Revenue Strategy. And in any case, the national strategy is based on the approach envisaging full implementation of the provisions of the EU acquis. And in 2030, we plan to have the model fully in line with the EU acquis, and also the model that could demonstrate the mature risk-based
system in tax administration. And in 2025, as it has been mentioned numerous times, it was very important for us to undergo screening. Chapter 16, we got recommendations from the European Commission of what should, in relation to what should be done on our path to the EU. And so we have now an undertaking to continue this work, to continue it actively, to complete the tasks as a part of our Euro integration. This is enhanced digitalization, increased capacity of our service, our cooperation, and have support of EU for BFM and the Ministry of Finance, and also will continue all the activities we started in 2025, like a new anti-corruption program, code of conduct, or ethical code. Together with the EU for BFM experts, we developed a competence framework. Of course, it is very difficult to implement institutional and organizational changes. Or it is very difficult to select people basing on the new competence framework in the face of depopulation. It is very difficult to work with our officers, employees, when internal temperature in our service is from 0 to 4 and 8, and there are blackouts as well. But we will continue our activity. And we would also thank everyone for having possibility to work under such conditions. And now we can see the numbers on the screen. This is budget revenue. Thanks to cooperation, and we believe that the increased service-oriented index of our service led to the fact that in 2025 we exceeded the plan by more than 2 billion. Of course, there were preconditions and there are amendments to the tax legislation, but anyway, so we can see these results of our administration, and we were able to collect the amount that was planned. It was very important that we preserved the trend of VAT refund satisfaction. There is no secret that Ukrainian entrepreneurs now have some limitations to the cheap capital, and so do everything possible to support economic activity of the taxpayer, in particular through payer mechanisms for refunds for those who are entitled to this. As for our priorities, I've already mentioned at the very beginning, our key function is to ensure macroeconomic and financial stability through mobilization of revenues. So collection of revenues is the key function of the state tax service of Ukraine. And when it comes to distribution, our working hours, working time, our priority is collection of revenue. And of course, the alignment of Ukraine's legislation to the EU acquis. This is the task which we have now, and we will continue our work in this area. Increased integrity and trust to the service. This is what is mentioned by the National Revenue Strategy in one of the sections. We do a lot to achieve this, and this is also in line with the spirit of our today's event. So this is the bridge of trust that we are constructing now. So we are expanding service functions. We're introducing modern CRM system just to increase trust of taxpayer to us. Ukraine is an ambitious country, so all Ukrainians are now proud of such a digital solution as TIA, the state tax service, and all Ukrainian citizens would like to be proud of other IT solutions. That's why together with our partners, we're going to work
here and to look for the funds to this. This is all as for the priorities, and now let's get to challenges. And of course, we have challenges on this path. I don't want to name them as obstacles, but these are like sharks in this stable environment that can bite us somehow. But despite this, we will look for the methods to fight against these sharks. So as for our challenges, these are limited resources, not only financial resources, but also human resources, human potential to implement to complete our ambitious tasks. So lack of qualified experts that has an adverse effect on the business, on the state tax service, the risks of interagency cooperation. There was a recent meeting with the Ministry of Finance, and there was a fair question about the shadowing. And this is a very popular question. You can do this, you can do this when there are several institutions, but why can't you overcome a phenomena? And the reason is lack of efficiency and interagency cooperation that help us to deal with the different phenomena in this state. Of course, there is the question of the war, attacks, outages. We've survived a lot, but we don't know what we can expect in the future. We can have an impact on the level of revenue, on the level of our changes, and of course, this is a challenge. And of course, changes management and institutional capacity. Oleg, you asked what can we do to ensure transformation. It is very difficult. Everyone are aware of the classical change management system and theory that so we need to explain to our personnel what is happening. There is resistance, and we are now under conditions when we don't have enough time to use classical approaches to changes, to amendments, to reforms, and this creates an additional burden on our personnel, on a lot of members of the introduction of this process and introduction of changes, but in any case, we are going to work with this. Glory to Ukraine and glory to heroes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Karnauk, for such a comprehensive presentation. Thank you for the vision that you shared with us today. And I would like to wish actually you to be able to implement everything you've mentioned today, just not only in the interest of Ukraine, but also the EU. And now, Ms. Yanushena, I have a question to you. You've reformed your system. You've aligned it to the EU acquis and requirements. If you look at this process, what was the difficult task, the most difficult task, and what gave the most efficient result? What you can be proud of now, despite of such a difficult process?
A long time ago. We really forgot this because we had passed a lot of reforms after that. And now we are also on the period of implementing new tax reform in Lithuania. But first of all, I would like to add a few words because it's not only legislation changes, it's this very important implementation of these changes in reality, as Lesa speaks about that. And I could answer maybe using only one word, trust. If state tax inspectorate is trusted by business, everything is possible. And also by Ministry of Finance, government, and citizens.
Thank you. Then perhaps you can share your feelings and what can you recommend to Ukraine on this path to be as efficient as possible.
I will answer in my presentation shortly. If you let me to start.
Так.
what is the most important for our people life is to live in our independent countries. And for that we need to be very united and very strong. And for that we need to have an iron will and iron health. And my dear colleagues from Ukraine, you really have залізна воля. But let's go back to the tax administration and to health. Our personal life proves again and again the importance of prevention, and it is fundamentally proven rule that prevention is much cheaper than treatment. And why do not use this rule in tax administration? And this was the reason why we created the client profile and opened it for our clients. We created the client profile and colored it using traffic lights principle, red for high risk, and yellow for low risk, and of course green for no risk. And today, this tax administration instrument exists in all Baltic sisters, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. And our colleagues from Latvia even went a step further. They opened this client profile for public. We just a step ahead. We are thinking about it. But let's go back to the very beginning. 10 years ago, the VAT gap in Lithuania was really huge, almost 27%. And that was the reason why we started thinking what really to do. And we started to collect in 2017 invoices via our specially created system, ISAF. It helped, unfortunately, not so much as we expected. The VAT gap decreased from 27 to almost 21. However, we gained a huge amount of structured data, and it was under our responsibility to use this data properly. And so the next step was to create ICON in 2021, intelligent tax control system, specially dedicated for VAT risks. And now there are 41 risk control rules in the system. And the results of the system speak themselves. And how it works. Our system continuously analyzes all data we have and creates tasks for our auditors. If it's high risk, it means that we have immediately to respond, and it is really audit. If it's medium risk, it means advice and help, and we are doing desk audits. If it's low risk, we just send information to our clients. And what about results? It was really a game changer. 7,000 desk audits usually we are doing per year, and it brings us 60 million euros real money to our budget. But it's not all. The VAT gap decreases almost twice, from 27 till 13, but we believe that there is always still room for improvement. This is not enough. So next step was made in 2024, when we decided to go from post-control to real-time evaluation process, and we launched a project. We took only one rule from our econ, comparison the VAT sales with VAT registers. This assessment is completed within maximum 2 days. Taxpayer receives a notification about the identified mismatches, and if it's not corrected, within 10 business days, follow-up actions are initiated. What does it mean from ex post to ex ante evaluation? It means that VAT return is evaluated not after submission to tax administration. VAT return is evaluated on the moment of submission. And if it's not correct, this VAT return doesn't go to our system. So we took 4,000 VAT returns, it was pilot project. 80% of our clients corrected errors, and it brings our budget plus 24 million euros. Just one rule, just notification, no audit, no desk audits, plus 24 million euros per year. It sounds really great, I think. Why only 4,000 actions? Because we have more than 200,000 mismatches, because we focused on the biggest one, and we set a tolerance limits. For small business, 2,500 euros, for medium, 3,500, and for large, 10,000 euros. And what gets the client and what we get, yeah? The client gets quick information, maximum 2 days. Now it's, I think, less than 1 day. He avoids penalties. We get additional money to budget, and we save our resources. We saved our auditors' time. Because post-control, it took almost 60 days for us. It was unbelievable. And what's next? Now we are testing 2 more rules from ICON to our preliminary evaluation of declaration, so wish us success and hope everything will be okay. One rule is differences in VAT return when reporting input VAT with ISAV data. The second rule is comparison of our EECA cash registers data and VAT return. And what about data? At the beginning, there was data. And nowadays, it's absolutely clear and absolutely obvious that data is the background of modern tax administration. And data helps us to create better solutions for better compliance. And I really believe in data's empowerment. And first, for example, about platforms. Now we get 8 times more data from platforms than 5 years ago, and this is just only beginning. And I am really a fan of this slide. In 2019, our bold drivers declared 140 euros per month in average income. When we started to receive data from platforms and included this data in income tax declaration, income of drivers suddenly grew up 9 times, from 140 to 1,200 per month. And this is a real example how data could help us increase tax compliance really significantly. And again, about data that shows how transparency, openness, and cooperation with compliant business could make huge changes in tax administration and also in society. Today, 8 companies from 10 trust our tax administration. And it's very important because trust is foundation of everything, everywhere, and every time. Державна податкова інспекція Литви вже передала 700 автомобілів в Україну.
The state tax service of Lithuania has already passed 700 cars to Ukraine.
Ми розуміємо, що це невелика
We
допомога,
understand that this may be not a huge assistance, but we believe that every drop is important for the common victory.
Пані Едіто, дякуємо щиро.
Miss Edita, thank you so much. And even those Bolt drivers who now have to pay not 140 but 1,200, they now at least understand what their taxes are used for and how the state tax service is operating. Thank you. Thank you so much. And now we would like to move to still another country, to their successful experience, that's Latvia. And Baiba Schmidt-Roki, the General Director of the State Revenue Service of Latvia, also is ready to share her experience of implementation to the European norms and requirements, and also to tell us what is expected for us on this journey, how it will be. They always say that we have to learn using our mistakes, but can we also learn from your mistakes?
Actually, yes. That's why my main purpose why I'm here, to make sure that you don't have to make the same mistakes as we did more than 22 years ago. But first of all, I would like to say it's an honor to be here in Kyiv in these days when it's not only snow is falling, but also we can hear the air alarms every single day, and it's admirable how you stand. And yesterday we met with colleagues from Ukrainian tax administration, and I was surprised that you can make jokes and feel so inspired just to be together, to maintain and to see the future, peaceful future of independent Ukraine. Slava Ukraini. But yes, today I would like to share the main principles how to be a modern tax administration in EU. And actually, when I started to think about what modern tax administration is, then I understood that Ukrainian tax administration is a very good example, because in the time of war, you can only not maintain and just function, but you are also can improve your services. You are make a new invention, not only maintain services and ensure tax revenue, but you improved your services so good, so we can learn from you e-invoices and digital cash machines. So it's lot of things when we can learn from you. So, but yes, today if we're talking about modern tax administration, usually we start with digitalization. But our experience shows that it's not the main question. The thing is not how to be digitalized, but it in European level, it means that how strong is national system connected and shared in shared European administrative space. EU integration in taxation is about connection, coordination, and trust between administration. In EU, there's important to understand that these advantages, what we can get from to be in the common market is information availability. You can share information in this digital age, in global economy. You can get the data from other countries. The system connectivity is very important because the data standards are allowed to share information between countries almost on daily basis. So the cross-border data exchange is very important to build compliance and coordinated supervision, because you have to find the balance between control and just collecting revenues and just from society, as editors already mentioned, is the most important thing. So compliance grows through coordination, not only control. What about connectivity and standards? It's not only thing what provided by EU, because we can see from Ukrainian experience that digital resilience and speed of adoption and innovation in the such hard circumstances is the things that we can learn from Ukraine. We are, in EU, our member states are feeling so and relaxed and improving our system year by year, but we can see that under such hard circumstances you can build and create some new innovation, so you can be our leader how to make change. So we are learning from you as well as 22 years ago we learned from our partners. Right now we are member states in one whole Europe. But yes, modern tax administration is shaped through cooperation, not the model to copy and paste. So every member state actually can be free to make their own decisions, because directives is not obligatory to just copy paste in your legislation. There is free space. But actually I'm pretty agree with the Minister of Finance from Lithuania that please do not overthink and overreact and not create so many exemptions and difficult questions how to administrate these taxes, because that is one of the biggest mistakes what we made 22 years ago. We listened to our politicians that there must be some exemptions, must be reduced rates, but it was too complicated and it was too expensive to administrate. So please sit together with experts from tax administration and listen to them. And listen also to businesses, because trust and efficiency to collect taxes is actually most important than only votes from your citizens, because this is how the state budget is creating, by collecting taxes, by compliance from all payments from all society. Actually, for our experience, we can say that actually, most of the taxpayers they want to comply, and they want to pay taxes. Of course, there is condition that they need to see that government is spending money very wisely, and that society should feel that the money which they pay by taxes, they can receive as a services, as the government services. So most taxpayers need to understand why they are paying taxes. The taxes should be predictable, and the taxation system should be fair. The general rules of EU laws show these principles, but if you try to apply in your country, you have to think about these principles in general and allow to see society that this fairness, certainty and convenience is important to you. So you can build a trust from society and businesses. And efficiency is one of the most important thing, because that was the second mistake, that we created so many difficulties to collect the taxes that we become the most expensive tax administration in EU. So right now, in the past few years, we are working to low administrative burden, because businesses is taking so many hours to fill the declarations. It's so hard to understand why we need those licenses, or why we need those I don't know, permission to do that and so. So make it easier for businesses to create money, and you will get this money back from the taxes voluntary. So made the legislations how to be efficiency, lowest costs, not only for taxpayers, but also for tax administration. People first. Actually, it's not a slogan. We should provide services for society, service for people, and we are thinking about not only taxpayers, we are not thinking about clients, because we see that behind every businesses, behind every taxpayer is a man or a woman. We see the people behind every services, and we are divided this society depending on their age, on their understanding of laws, on their capacity to understand our digital tools. We provide different services just to be clear, to be understandable from society side. So about advanced digitalization, it's not only about how to create electronical declaration. It's about advanced digitalization means that we provide services that automatically field declaration from our perspective. You have to work like to reduce time to spend from businesses. It's again about efficiency, how tax administration should work. And real-time control, yes, it's continuous compliance. And already I will not repeat Edith's experience, because in Latvia we use the same approach, and it's instant analytics. It's most important thing to be efficient from tax administration side, and also to see we don't have so many people to go through any taxpayer. We need to make advanced analytics, and that our data systems can approve. So, global megatrends affecting tax administrations in the world. Actually, there are a lot of them, and not only in EU, but also in OECD countries. We see the same challenges as artificial intelligence, cross-border mobility and digital economy, data security and privacy expectation, but also demographic and workforce shifts. But today I'm listening to all these presentations and understood that this is nothing compared to your challenges, what you are facing. Let's show us a lot of sharks which is around, but the war, what is happening in 21st century in Europe, it's something unimaginable, and I wish that for all of us, and first of all for Ukraine, that this is the last year when we talk about that horrible thing as war. So there is a lessons to learn what we are facing on daily basis, but actually I think that I'm not here as a teacher to teach Ukraine how to approach to European Union. Actually, we are your partners, as we spoke yesterday and today. We are partners, and we can learn from each other. And I would like to say that I feel Ukraine as our Latvian friends, and we are here as friends, and friends can share our experience. We can show you the way how to not to do mistakes, and we are maybe can show the shortest way, how to cut the corner to make things easier for you. So ask any questions. We are here always as a friends. Latvia and Ukraine is always friend. Thank you.
Пані Байбо, дякуємо щиро за вашу
Thank
готовність
you,
допомогти. Дякуємо за
Bible,
ваше
for
бачення
your readiness
участі у
to help us, for your vision of the involvement into reforming of the Ukrainian tax legislation
Пані Анко,
on the
дозвольте
path to
вам
the
поставити запитання.
European community. And now, Mr. Feldhusen, I have a
так чи
question to
інакше,
you. Now
ви
you have a
завжди
new
опікувалися
role, but actually
бізнесом
all the
в
time
Україні.
you
Очевидно,
took
німецький бізнес в Україні
care
це
about
не
business
бажання.
in
Зараз
Ukraine.
ви
And of
представляєте
course,
інтереси в тому
German
числі
business in
українського
Ukraine is
бізнесу.
one thing, and now you
Бізнес
also
це довіра.
represent Ukrainian business. Business is about trust.
Довіру
Is it difficult
бізнесу
to form this trust of business to your integration processes? What Ukraine should do? Is it difficult for us to persuade our businesses that European path is what can do life of business better in the future?
Дякую за запрошення. Вперше за все,
Thank you for this invitation, and this is my third day in my new role of business ombudsman. And today here I'm with experts, and I listened carefully because I'm not a tax expert. And first of all, I'd like to speak as a German citizen, and the German has been a member of the EU for quite a long time. And I've heard today that in Denmark and Lithuania, people are proud of paying taxes. I'm not sure that German citizens are proud of doing so, but for sure they know what they can get for this money. And I think that this is the first step to build this trust. And of course, in Germany, we have people who have trust in tax services, those who don't have this trust, that's for sure. First, I visited Ukraine in 1994, and it's more than 30 years I've been closely monitoring the development of Ukraine. And the biggest difference between Germany and Ukraine is the level of trust of people to the state. And unfortunately, it's still the question, and the digital transformation that was mentioned today already, it really helped. And in Germany, I always make an example of Tia. And as my neighbor has today mentioned, that digital transformation is not everything, because other activities are needed. How to persuade Ukrainian businesses to believe into the European integration? It is a very difficult question for me to ask only on the third day of my new role. I can only demonstrate examples of our business, examples of Germany and other countries, other EU member states. The EU provides for framework that our business can rely upon. So we are talking here about consistency. Our businesses actually know what to expect from the EU rules. And I think that for Ukrainian companies, this also can be an important factor. And just briefly about my new position and how we can help. We as a Business Ombudsman Council published a report at the beginning of 2024. And there we mentioned that renewal and enhancement of trust to the state tax service in particular is one of the top priorities. And it is very important because I'm afraid that business in Ukraine still believes that tax checks is kind of a punitive measure of the state. And perhaps it can be understood. Now I would like to share a number. The State Statistics Service demonstrates that 99% of tax revenue are formed at the expense of voluntary tax payments, and less than 1% are collected as a result of control measures, like fines, etc. With this information, it is clear that taxpayers already understand that they do a lot, including business. But at the same time, we, as Ms. Karnauk, can see some significant shift compared to 2024. And my predecessor was the first to say this: consult first. So, meaning that more communication is needed. That was our recommendation back then, the report, and Ms. Karnauk has demonstrated today how it functions. So here we're talking about communication with taxpayers to correct errors before defining this tax obligation or fine. And the tax consultant offices mentioned by Ms. Karnauk are really good to provide recommendations in difficult tax issues, and also then give advice to business of how to fulfill the legislation and how to prevent violations. And we believe that this is a progress. And generally, improvement of dialogue between the state tax service and taxpayers and the meetings of the management of the service with business from different economic sectors, with business associations, are very important for de-shadowing in particular. And we should also speak here about openness of the service to innovations. And our project related to tax mediations, and as Ms. Karnauk mentioned, there is already the first successful case, makes us really proud, and we hope for the continuation of these cases, for new cases. These are very positive signals. And there is still room for the improvement. And there are two things we should work on. And here I'd like to come back to consistency. So consistency is very important to build trust in state. And this is perhaps the most important thing. And there is one example. So there is a problem that administrative practice doesn't take into consideration the court decisions for public authorities, including tax authorities. So we need to continue working here. And we discussed this with Ms. Vorobey. So this is about changing the mindset from both sides. And the state should step back from the default perception of businesses as violators. Taxpayers shall become partners and not adversaries. So we do everything possible together for taxpayers, not only individuals, but companies to become partners. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Feldhusen, for your willingness to support Ukraine now in this new role. Thank you very much. Dear guests, now you can ask questions to the participants of this panel. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to ask it. The mic, please.
My name is Viktor Mazurchuk. I'm the head of Fiscal Policy Research Center, and my question is to detail from Baltic states. Could you please describe a little bit more about what modern technique and AI technology you use in your regular work to find out gaps? Because it's very interesting from Ukraine perspectives and from what we are doing in our center. Thanks.
Actually, yes, thank you for the question. The joining EU, it's the main three questions. First of all, it's legislation, adoption of legislation. The second thing is how to improve your IT system to provide this information flow from you to Ukraine country, to European countries and the backwards. And the third thing is the change of mindset. And this is actually one most important thing. Technology, you know, if you have money, you can create anything. Yes, you do. We will help you if you don't know how to do that. But actually, European Union provides the unified standards. They provide the technological approaches. They provide experts to consult you in particular fields of taxes or technological development. There is not such a good such a hard way to improve your IT system. The most important thing is to change your mindset to go that path. Because, you know, I think that you, as we, Latvian, thought that our taxation system is the best in the world, but actually European Union provides the rules. Maybe it's not acceptable for the first look, but if you see that it builds your capacity, it will improve your tax revenue through the common system, it will be easier for you to go that path, and you can improve your IT system, you can follow the rules of EU experts, and I know that there's a lot of them to help you. Just use that possibility to be in the common European market. It's good to be there, believe me.
Try to be more concrete. I mentioned in my presentation ICON, Special Risk Assessment System for VAT. We also have a special risk assessment system for physical persons and also separate for companies. And unfortunately, I'm not so deep in these details because I am not technical expert, but I think we should organize separate conference for such systems and to present you all. And please came to us, and we could come to you and to explain in more details how it works in reality. And as Baiba mentioned, we gained a lot of information and practices from other countries, and also we have really close cooperation between 3 Baltic sisters, and we periodically exchange a lot of things and information, and all we are open for you, and we could share a lot of things.
Дякую. Маємо сигнал повітряної тривоги, але ми нагадуємо, що ми
Yes, we now have the alert signal, but let me remind you that we are in the protected environment. We don't have any grounds to be worried. Are there any more questions? If not, then let us thank our participants of this panel. Many thanks for your experience. Thank you for your confidence. Thank you so much for your assistance. Appreciate that you stand with us. Many thanks. And we will make not even small time out, just simply to summarize our today's work and our today's important meeting aimed at reforming the Ukrainian legislation, tax legislation, to make sure that it's compliant with the European norms. And for this, I would want to invite you to this stage just to summarize our today's work, the ones who have already been very active in the operation of our conference. Ms. Lesia, I think you in the same way can come up and make these conclusions. Svetlana Vorobey, who also has to say some inspiring words to complete our work. And also allow me to invite to the stage, also for the finalization of our discussion, Mr. Paulis Majauskis. He is a distinguished expert that will be very happy to analyze what we have been talking today, and he could evaluate the movement of our country in the journey to harmonization of the legislation. Ms. Lesia, please. I just wanted to say thank you sincerely. It's a great pleasure in the first place that even the name of the conference certifies to a great attention to the tax administration and to the reform of the taxation system of Ukraine as such. That's a great pleasure because it's really all about us. Much has been said and mentioned what we already knew. Also, much has been discussed that's been said many times, but it's being systematized and it's now playing with new colors and it really gives motivation, gives the impetus to move forward. And honestly, I can tell you, I'm a little bit concerned with one factor of today's conference, that we had few representatives of the state tax service. I really wish, I really wish that my colleagues would hear those words that were mentioned today. I would really love that my colleagues, as much as possible, would be engaged into all of the processes that are happening in the state. And most important that I would wish to say is that this was said in the presentation of Viva, that for each indirect taxpayer, in the first place, we have seen the person behind. So the service transformation and the tax administration in Ukraine, in the first place, is aimed at people, at Ukrainians, European integration, European values, that's about people. And for me, that's a key conclusion for today, key takeaway, that the taxpayer is not just a taxation substance, some terminology. In the first place, the Ukrainian taxpayer, this is a man, a woman, a child of different age. That's key for me that I'm taking away from this conference. Ms. Svetlana, for you, today's discussion, what it is about. Well, for me, today's discussion has confirmed something that I have known over the last 6 years. In reality, this journey was started, as Lesia said, since a long time. And today we have once again reconfirmed that this road, this journey is not reversible. As it's written in our motto of the conference, we're building bridge to Europe. We are building the bridge. We have the TOR, we have the technical parameters, we have a plan how to build it, in which timelines. We already see some horizons. They are fluctuating between 27 and 2030, but let's keep in mind 2027. But the closest buildings, the best buildings in the world were built with common effort. So we will build this bridge, but only together. Let me emphasize this again. From my side, as the head of the unit of the Ministry of Finances, who is responsible for this, tax transformation, I can only promise you that we will take all possible efforts to make sure that we are united in this work. We will engage every stakeholder in this building to make sure we can convince the ones who are still hesitant that this building will be built. It will be high quality, it will be for centuries. What else? Just to summarize everything that has been said today, we have several such cases on this journey. That's the build-up of the legislation, where we have not so many variativeness. There is this European legislation that's already been formed, and we have to join in to something that hasn't already been formed and that's working. But we have some homework that we need to do. That's the administration. That's creating procedures which should take into account our peculiarities, the peculiarities of our business, the needs of our state, our possibilities, because they're very much different from the possibilities and opportunities of the countries members of the European Union. We're still building them. So I can promise to you that we'll be together trying to make this spot most comfortable for business and as least traumatic for our economy as possible, by rebuilding the mentality in the first place of the state authorities. But you should go in front. This is a two-way road. So in case the business community is not going to understand their responsibility on this journey, we won't be able to build this bridge. Therefore, appreciate that you're here. The only fact that you're here, that means you are interested, you're ready to join in to this work. So together with Lesser, we will make it in such a way that this work would be most interesting, most useful, less traumatic for the business and for the economy. Not everything will be coming out easily. We will be arguing, we'll be searching for solutions. Unfortunately, we can't make this easy. This will be difficult, especially that we have these very tense timelines. But the road is mastered by the one who is going it. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to heroes. Paulius Majakis, the key international expert on tax, your remark, your evaluation of what is happening in Ukraine and what we will have to face in the years' times.
It's quite difficult to repeat everything that has been already mentioned, so I completely agree with the insights, with the challenges, but maybe briefly about, from our perspective, what we see the process. I believe that technically it would not be so easy to transpose all legislation, because we had last summer screening process, and we know quite clear every article of every directive that should be implemented or not implemented, or it is already implemented. So we have clear plans with our partner institutions, Svetlana, Lesa. So we are ready to assist everything as concerning transposing necessary legislation. And what, from my perspective, because I also not like a only expert from EU, but I also represent, not represent, but I am from member state. I also participated and remember times when we were joining EU. I'm from Lithuania also, so my advice would be just also quite closely related to our task and our discussions to prepare at least technically all necessary legislation and draft, and as soon as possible to discuss it with business. Just not to be afraid from government side to make first proposals and discuss. And businesses should not be afraid to discuss it with government, because I feel very strong support for EU integration path. So we have to agree with everything now that Ukraine will be a member of European Union. We believe in it. So business also have to support this process, and it would be much easier if everyone knows the rules, knows advantages. Everything would be predictable, and I'm not speaking about technicalities, that also challenging and maybe most challenging thing that is quite hidden, because transposition is easy, but if you are speaking about creation necessary IT solutions and changing approach in tax administration and moving towards digitalization, there are many challenges, but it's also like a duty for our governmental institutions, for I say our, meaning Ukrainian. Yes, already I could mention that. So it's obvious, but it should be done, and it like a precondition for this. But I would start with legislation to be open and discuss in every format, including all participants in the discussions, and to receiving all ideas, because as Svetlana said, there are also optional provisions, and it's your decision, this Ukrainian decision, to apply it or not, because you will be member state with your own tax policy in non-harmonized spheres, so let's be prepared. Well, that's maybe from my side as for now, but to close the conference, I have to say something quite formal words, you know that, because once, yes, I also survived presidency during our presidency Lithuanian, so you know, there's something formal acknowledgement should be done, but it may sound formal, but it's really, honestly, I would like thank you colleagues, thank you partners, thank you friends for this, and yes, and first of all, I would like to extend special thanks to our international partners who traveled to be with us, Baiba, Edita, Latvia, Lithuania, your support and sharing experience, the bridge that makes this integration possible, really. And I hope for further cooperation with project in particular. And we see that Ukraine has partners who have walked this road before, and I believe they are also working with you together as for now. With thanks also, yes, representatives from Ukrainian partner institutions and European Commission for providing national and external perspective. That's very worth. And special acknowledgement goes to the business ombudsman. Thank you very much for attending our conference. Just to find time for be here and to share experience, your vision. It's very valuable. And of course, special thanks for the business representative. Thank you for your insights, comments, and especially for strong support for Ukraine to the EU integration. And definitely we are looking forward for close cooperation. Also, dear online participants, thank you for staying with us virtually, and it demonstrates that it's really that the topics resonates far beyond these walls of our conference hall. And once again, my privilege is to be next. Svetlana, Lesa, we definitely at your disposal to continue our cooperation. And finally, dear interpreters, thank you for your hard work today. You have literally spoken our bridge to Europe into existence, ensuring that complex technical political concepts were understood clear by everyone, regardless of language. So and I believe that we now are prepared to leave and continue discussions during the lunch. And also, you have to say, and I would like to say, Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава! Дякуємо, пане Павлю, спасибі велике. Дякуємо всім
Thank you
учасникам
so much
сьогоднішнього.
to all the participants of today's conference. Thank you, all the panelists, to everybody who has supported such an important and actual discussion. Once again, thank you for your work, for your confidence. Thanks for your feeling of inevitability of our way. And this is really the case. And we are ready to go and do that huge work, that huge assignment, but together, with common effort, the bridge that you have mentioned, Svetlana, will be built by our common effort, and let it stay strong and without any problems. Thank you again. Let me invite you to some informal communication and have something to eat. That's also very important on the stage of the complicated European road. Thank you once again.